So what happens is, right, so we've got our kind of our left side of this idealized value stream, right, the portfolio man, we end up with a business backlog. Just like we might have a product backlog, I mean, hey, it's pretty easy. I mean, you can have a couple of brainstorming sessions, you can end up with hundreds of stories because it doesn't take too long to do that. We can identify all of these MBIs, right? And I'm not talking about the level of depth in the example that I showed you. That was an MBI that was ready to implement. Right, that'd be like a story that has met a definition of ready, lots of acceptance criteria, lots of discussion that's happened between the team and the product owner and anyone else that's being involved, subject matter experts from the business or, somebody from, shared services. Very similar approach with what's in the business backlog. Very low level of investment for those MBIs that are further down or at the bottom. Could be big, we might need to split some of them, just like story splitting. But here's the other thing that's really important for this approach, right? The product management part. So those MBIs, those next smallest bits of value that we can deliver to our customer, right, as part of the discovery workflow, is where we're putting a more investment of time, right? Through discussion, through the written word, right, where we would have a definition of ready that we're all going to agree on. We need adequate discussion, just like a story would, and we need adequate written text and some of the supporting content so that when we've got those MBIs that are ready for implementation, they're sitting in this intake queue. And this intake queue is the bridge between business or strategies and the implementation side, right? So they're there and they're not pulled out of that intake queue until we have a high level of confidence we're actually ready to start that work and we're going to be able to get that work done. Again, it's not just the IT work, or it's not just the IT work of one of the teams. If it's a two or more teams, two or more products that need to be enhanced. So again, just a quick flash, right? Here's the MBI, right? This complicated one, right? And it's got our development, it's got our operational, and it's got our supporting. So here's how that looks. Now this is a slight variation of what's in the Discipline Agile Value Stream Consultant material. Right? So what I've done is, instead of just having a development value stream focus and talking about attending to the operational and the supporting value stream, I'm actually going to show that graphically. Right? So what I'm going to show is that we've got not always, but in this case, we've got value-adding activities from development, operational, and supporting that has to happen. And it's when all that comes together, and that's part of the program management aspect, that we're then, right, at the end of being able to deliver this out into a production environment, right, the operationalization of it, which also includes, and oftentimes, right, people that are like out in the field, right, other locations, or again, the customer support people, not the people that are just supporting, again, defects, bugs that are in our IT products, the actual, customer-facing support. So that's one of the other really significant differences here, is that we want to be able to pull the work from that intake queue with good alignment and coordination across the three value streams in a complex situation like this. And I got another one I'll show you that's just a tiny bit of development work and a tiny bit of operational support work. But some of the things that'll leave you just from a thought-provoking perspective is, hey, this organization I mentioned rarely did anything that was a significant enhancement to a customer-facing sales portal without some level of advertising and marketing. I mean, they knew. I mean, it was a data-driven organization. They knew that's how they would be successful. So the money that they were spending in the IT area, which, let's face it, that's not typically inexpensive, right? The way they would be able to get the results they were after, the forecast of those outcomes that they were hoping for, is that they had to work from a marketing and advertising perspective. So the marketing team might not need to be available again on the very first day that the development team is pulling this work in and getting their work going. But think about if you are looking at the customer journey and somebody in marketing could actually see how a customer would be interacting with this functionality. They can fine-tune their marketing campaign or how they're going to advertise it. They're going to have some awareness of this. We're going to know that, hey, look, from a timing perspective, like, yeah, our marketing's doing pretty good, and hey, we've got people that are moving into the support area for this, whatever learning they need, or just, again, maybe there were some new hires, whatever the case was, that was going to be able to have the support for the customers that would be interacting with this functionality. So another example on the other end of the spectrum is this, right? Another MBI, right? That last one, hey, maybe that took 3 months or 4 months. Man, that was a lot of work, right? Maybe we've got one that we get out in 3 or 4 weeks, right? So we have an enhancement to a product that one team is doing. And maybe this is one new slide transition or a couple of slide transitions, right, to PowerPoint. And so we have some work in the development value stream, and then there's minimal, like, hey, so we need some training. We got to make sure people are aware that they can support this. Hey, this is coming. Right? We're not going to blindside you. We're not going to just be rolling functionality out. Just because we're, getting better from a delivery perspective. We got more DevOps, more automation, that type of stuff. We're providing visibility upstream and downstream of what we're doing. And I like to also say it's not just upstream and downstream, it's above and below. Right? Most organizations, if they've got a lot of value streams, some of those value streams are going to intersect, right? Forming like a value network. We need to make sure that there's good awareness of, hey, what we're doing here, it's not going to impact something somewhere else that's going to cause a problem. So that is a small part of the Discipline Agile Value Stream Management Consultant approach. Right? We've got a lot of things, a lot of options that bring this into fruition. Last thing I'll say is on this idealized value stream, like where it came from. So Net Objectives, over the course of almost 20 years, right, had come up with different approaches that were working, right? Customers they were working with. And the founder of Net Objectives, who was once the company was acquired, he was the thought leader of Agile at Scale, Al Shalloway. So Al not only through his company had a fair amount of data and experience with their customers, but Al is somebody that's been an industry thought leader for a very long time. And so through, speaking with other consultants, other people that were speaking at conferences, right, year after year after year, and being able to identify, right, again, from a more idealized perspective, how we can go from an idea to the realization of value. So the other thing was Al led the development of this approach, right? All this great intellectual property that they brought over from the acquisition of Net Objectives. But there was an alpha program that had roughly 60 consultants across the world that do work in this space, the value stream space. And it wasn't just DA stuff. I mean, there were people that had vast experience with SAFe and one or two large-scale Scrum, like some of the other leading approaches in the marketplace, that all provided feedback or contributed, hey, this would work. And so the backdrop, this idealized value stream, and then a way that we do assessment based on competencies that really represent if you're at least doing these competencies, or you get a certain level of maturity with them, like some really great stuff is going to potentially happen versus if you're not doing them, probably not good stuff or possibly bad stuff is what's unfolding. But that's also just a little bit of the background of where this came from and how it's been proven out to work.